The film Cloud Atlas tells 6 seemingly disconnected stories, but over the course of the movie, connections start to appear. Like a building symphony, the disconnected narratives align in a powerful crescendo. Cloud Atlas polarized critics. It's difficult to turn an experimental book into a blockbuster movie, but what if you wanted to, say, turn it into a beautifully carved box? In this video, I want to show you how this 1,300-year-old whalebone box is as ambitious and weird as the movie Cloud Atlas. It also contains 6 seemingly disconnected stories, and like Cloud Atlas, it makes us ask what connects them, because behind these scenes is a much bigger story, the hidden secret of the Auzon Casket.
Paths seldom trod.
The Auzon Casket comes from northern England during the early 700s AD. After the collapse of Roman Britain in the 400s, England had been divided into warring states. This was followed by the invasion of Germanic peoples. Sea raiders started to migrate and settle in large groups, driving many native Britons into Wales. By the 600s, the migrants had started to establish small kingdoms. Missionaries were sent by the Pope in Rome, and many of the new kings converted from their pagan beliefs to Christianity. The kings of Northumbria enthusiastically supported the missionaries, letting them build monasteries and taking them as royal advisors. The casket was probably a gift from a monk or bishop to a Northumbrian king. Anglo-Saxons loved riddles, and the front panel contains a riddle about the material used to carve the box. The flood cast up the fish on the mountain cliff. The Terror King became sad when he swam on the shingle. Whale's bone. This riddle is soon unlocked. The box is carved from the bones of a beached whale, but the entire box is itself a much more complex riddle, showing 6 strange scenes. Some of the stories are familiar, others less so. Perhaps the bishop would have discussed it with the king, describing what each image represents and how they are connected. Or perhaps it was designed to be puzzled over for hours. Together, the carvings create a huge narrative spanning continents and centuries. A new king replaces his brother. But there's a problem. The old king's daughter has given birth to twins. The babies are torn from the arms of their weeping mother and left on the banks of the river to die. But the river god protects them. A she-wolf adopts them as her cubs, and they drink her milk. They shelter in a cave until one day a shepherd discovers them. The scene changes and we see strangely dressed men preparing for a journey. Using their skills, they prepare gifts for a king who is still only a child. A new star shines, marking his coming. They depart, traveling east. The former high priest, Annas ben Annas, heads a meeting of Jewish religious leaders in the Temple of Jerusalem. The Jews have finally overthrown the Roman invaders and declare a new government under Jewish law. The gathered leaders cheer in celebration. A man called John watches on in silence. Hundreds of years later, Sigurd, a warrior with a beautiful sword, meets an old man in a forest. "I am looking for a horse to match this sword," he says. The old man helps him drive a herd of wild horses into a fast-flowing river. Once in the water, all the horses swim back to land except for one grey stallion. "That is your horse," says the old man. "Call him Granny." A mighty archer is preparing to fire an arrow at his son. On his son's head is an apple. Watching on is a cruel king, smiling, and a terrified mother. The archer releases the arrow, and it pierces the apple without injuring the boy. "Why did you take 2 arrows, Egil?" asks the king. "The second arrow was to kill you with if I missed," Egil replies. Wayland hugs his beautiful wife goodbye. She gives him the ring he forged for her as something to remember her by. Then she disappears to another world. Wayland sleeps, hugging the ring to his chest, but in the night he is captured by soldiers. He awakes to find himself in a smithy. He can't walk because the muscles in his legs have been cut. His ring is gone. A cruel king has taken him captive and will force him to be a blacksmith. Wayland secretly crafts wings for himself whilst the cruel king is distracted. He kills the king's sons and turns their skulls into drinking goblets. Then he leaps out of the window and flies away, taking his ring with him. The cruel king is furious with Egil the archer for helping Wayland escape. Egil locks the door of his fortress to protect his wife. Giant warriors attack him, but eventually they are driven away by arrows, and his family are safe. The Wolf brothers have grown up and become popular leaders. They leave home to found a new city, but cannot agree on which hill to start building. An argument begins, and one brother turns the crowd against the other. Romulus watches as a mob murder Remus. A huge army surrounds the city of Jerusalem, as John is leading a war council in the temple. News reaches them that the enemy have broken through. They draw their swords as soldiers pour through the burning gates. John tries to but is captured as his fellow zealots are slaughtered. The soldiers carry the banner of a wolf suckling 2 children. The scene changes to a dark forest, like the one where the old man met Sigurd, the mighty warrior. A huge burial mound rises in a clearing. Granny, the grey stallion, rests his head against the earth. A woman weeps. Sigurd is dead. At night, the Magi arrive in a small house and bow before a baby, presenting gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The 6 stories come from Germanic, Jewish, Roman, and Christian cultures. Some are tales of revenge or trickery. Others are tragic stories. One is a messianic tale, but to a Northumbrian king, together they told a powerful story. According to its author, the 6 stories of Cloud Atlas are about the way people and groups prey on each other. The individual clouds, the stories, change, but the atlas, human nature, remains the same. The 6 stories of the Auzon Casket are less focused on predation and more interested in power. In the stories of Egil the Archer and Wayland the Smith, we see the limits of royal power. Cruel kings cannot destroy the human spirit. They only make enemies for themselves. Warrior heroes, like the story of Sigurd and Granny, eventually die despite their mighty deeds. Even the ancient king who tries to kill Romulus and Remus fails. And then there is the tragic tale of the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, a city full of zealots hoping for the return of a Messiah. Their homeland is utterly destroyed by the Romans. The irony is the kingly Messiah had returned decades earlier, but almost no one seemed to have noticed. Only the strangers from the east, the Magi, understood the true meaning of Jesus' kingship. The adoration of Jesus by the Magi is the only completely positive image on the box. The willing submission of the Magi contrasts with the bloody revenge of Wayland the Smith against his king. True kingly power is more than violence and intimidation. A true king holds cultural power, not on the level of a Messiah. If people started thinking like that, then things could end up like the fall of Jerusalem. But cultural Christian power was a vital part of Northumbrian kingship. It helped create a culture where subjects recognized the king as their ruler, not just because he commanded an army, but because he was an educated Christian who was just and fair. On average, Northumbrian kings reigned for just under 7 years in this period. Deposed kings often became monks. It was a cultural system of power which limited bloodshed during a period of political change. and that looming awareness of the temporary nature of worldly power gives the casket a new meaning, because, like the whale, the Terror King, from whose bones the box was carved, kings could be all-powerful and terrifying one day, and powerless and forgotten the next. The secret meaning of the Auzon Casket was hiding in plain sight all along. Please like and subscribe for more content like this. I wish you a calm and peaceful day.